Welcome to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast, where we go behind the scenes and uncover the tactics and strategies top entrepreneurs are using to make more sales, dominate their markets, and how you can get those same results. Here's your host, Dave Woodward.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Funnel Hacker Radio. I'm your host, Dave Woodward, and cannot wait to have this guest on today. So real quick, I gotta introduce who he is, because this is a guy he's been bugging the crap out of me for a long time. But most importantly, I've been dying to get on our podcast. So welcome to Brad Weimert, who is the adventure entrepreneur and the founder of Easy Pay Direct. Brad, welcome.
Hey, thanks so much. I appreciate you having me on, man.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited to have you on. Brad and I both share one of the things, two things, and that is a huge entrepreneurial desire, but most importantly, adventure. And that's one of the things I want to dive right into is I'd love for you to kind of tell a little bit about yourself. Obviously, you got the mohawk going, but more important than that is the crazy thing for me is here's a guy who's all out there, loves the adventure, loves exploring and having a ton of fun, and at the same time is probably one of the most risk-adverse types of industries ever. So it's kind of an interesting dichotomy here between the two. So if you don't mind, Brad, just dive in. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, totally. So Easy Pay Direct is a high-volume e-commerce credit card processing company. So we set up merchant accounts and we built some software specifically for higher-volume e-commerce companies. And yeah, I think, like you said, there's some innate risk aversion there, but more importantly, there's risk management. So we can dive into the specifics of that first. But my world pretty much revolves around growth and relationship building. That's how I sort of distill everything. Like, what gets me excited is building relationships and growing as a person. And anytime you can find a unique experience, it accelerates both growth and the relationships that you have. So, if you're as simple as if you're sitting in a restaurant and the server drops an entire tray of stuff and it's a big scene, the person that you're sitting with, you will both connect quicker because that was a little bit different than every other dining experience. So it will build this environment to do that. And for me, adventures are one of the things that really accelerate that because they tend to be very unique, but on top of that, there's this mass emotional charge to it. So I'm always seeking out adventures, whether it's, endurance athletics or rock climbing or mountain climbing or skydiving or scuba diving or whatever I can do to find that unique experience. I'm after.
I love it. I'm the same way. It's one of the things I always tell my kids. It's like, you know what? I don't care about the gifts as much as I care about the experience, because you'll remember the experience 1,000 times more than you ever will a gift. So I love creating experiences for people. I think that's really super cool.
That's great, man.
So tell me, what are some of the cool adventures you've been on recently? Things that you like that have been fun?
So, lately I've been doing a ton of rock climbing. But the kind of one of the things that transitioned into that was I've done a little bit of mountaineering too. I had a friend call me a couple years ago, and he said, "Hey," so his name's Carl, and he said, "Hey, Brad." So this is the opening of the phone call. "Hey, Brad. So I know you're not really experienced enough to do this." Great start. great start to the call. But do you want to go climb the 3 tallest mountains in the Swiss Alps? And my response was, "Fuck yeah." And he's very smart and very experienced, and he hangs up the phone and he calls me back 4 days later and he's like, "So have you thought about it?" And I was like, yeah, I thought about it and I'm in. Let's do it. So we go on this we go on this trip, and I spend the next several months training, and I have to do research and homework on what kind of training I should be doing, because unlike rock climbing, mountaineering is, lots of gear, cold weather. You're on your feet a lot of the time. You wear crampons, which are these big spikes that you put onto your boots. It's just different dynamic than a vertical wall with, that you're using your rock climbing shoes and hands on. So I train and I get in really good shape to do this. And I'm like climbing the stairs of the high rise I live in, up and down, up and down, up and down. Then I add the pack. So I've got 50 pounds on my back, up and down, up and down. People think I'm nuts in the building, right? So that was a really cool experience, but there was a specific moment when I when I was so glad that I had somebody really experienced with me, because he kind of created the packing list and he told me, hey, these are the things you have to bring when we go on this adventure. It's awesome. And so this will come full circle, but we're about to climb Mont Blanc, and Mont Blanc is the tallest mountain in the Swiss Alps, but it's not technical at all. It's just a long sort of drudging experience. So we start going, and I realize that Carl, while an incredibly technical climber, he's climbed some of the biggest mountains in the world, he was horribly out of shape. So he had not trained at all to do this. So because, he's climbed like 50 mountains. So we're going, and it is like I literally am taking 7 steps, and then I would stop and count in my head 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, to wait until Carl caught up to me. So this is the pace that we're going at, which for anybody that's done any sort of long-term or like any sort of endurance athletics, or even a little bit of a long run, the only thing you want to do is just zone out. You just want to be able to just go. So this pace is brutal. So we spend a few hours of this kind of up, down. We're doing these like winding switchbacks up the mountain, and we're on our feet, but you're kind of using the axe periodically to assist you in like little verticals. And then we hit this part where there's this massive crevasse. It's like, you can't see the bottom. It's probably 2,000 feet down, and it's, 10 feet across. And Carl, who's leading, says, hey, yeah, now we just need to climb up the wall. But we are, for the first time, completely vertical. So we have to like step over this crevasse. You kind of have a brace that you kind of like walk around an edge, and then you have to go straight vertical, but beneath you is nothing. And the only thing that you're attached to is each other. So you're kicking your left toe in, which has spikes on it, right? So you've got these crampons that are just metal. They're like metal cages that wrap around your shoes, and they kind of snap on your boots. And so you kick the spikes in from the crampon. You kick your left foot, kick your right foot. Then you put one axe in with your right hand, one axe in with your left hand, and then you step up. Left foot, right foot, axe, axe. Left foot, right foot, axe, axe. And you keep going up at this pace. And we probably have 100-foot ascent or something like that. And this is terrifying to me, right? Like this is what he means by you're not experienced enough to do this. So he goes first, and we get to the top, and I'm now the roles have totally reversed. He's like flying. He just wants to fly up this thing. And I'm shaking, I'm like, oh God, I don't know what to do here. So we get up, and I can feel the rope sort of pulling on me, that we're connected, right? But if one of us falls, the hope is just that your partner's axes are going to be into the ice deep enough to catch the other person. But there's nothing else supporting you. So he's kind of pulling on me. We get up to the top, and as I step over the top, over the edge, I step up and I put both feet on the ground, and I kind of I'm waiting for my heart rate to go down a little bit, but I look down and I have one crampon on, and the other crampon is no longer on my boot. And I look back over the edge, and my crampon is stuck into the side of the wall. It like right at the top, like the last kick that I did as I pulled my foot up and stood on the top, the crampon was stuck in the wall. Now, frame of reference, first of all, this doesn't happen all the time, but what had happened is the crampon had just unclipped, and my boot just pulled right out of it. Now, what's scary about that is if you don't have these metal spikes on the bottom of your feet, if you can get back down at all is a massive question. Like what you do at that point, I don't even know. So I reach down and I hook the crampon with my ice axe and pull it back up, and I have it. But one of the things that had happened through that process was I pulled it up and I broke the little clasp that locks the crampon on. So we're standing on top of this, and it's not the top of the mountain, but one of the peaks of the mountain, and I don't know what to do at this point. And Carl, the person who packed our stuff and made the packing list, said, look, don't worry about it. We have this called it's like a steel strap that has punched holes in it. You can get it at like Home Depot or whatever. But he said one of the things that we always climb with is duct tape, the punch steel strapping, and toilet paper, which is not relevant for this. So we pull out this little piece of steel strapping and duct tape and fix the crampon back onto my boot. But I mean, holy crap, had we not had that, like so many things could have gone wrong, right? If the crampon fell, I would have been screwed. If we didn't have the steel strapping, I don't know what I would have done. I wouldn't have been able to use the crampon. So that was like this. That was one of those moments in adventure where now this climbing partner of mine, Carl, I will remember forever, and we will continue to be great friends forever. But B, that was one of these moments where I thought, man, I really need to think through the adventures on the front end and make sure I'm prepared to do them.
I love it. Well, tell me, obviously the key here is how all this ties into the risk aversion of things, and most importantly, risk management, which you just kind of showed. So tell us a little more about Easy Pay Direct and exactly what it is you guys do and how people are able to actually use that tool and service to really manage the risk.
Yeah. So one of the challenges when you get to a certain point in business is that merchant account providers have sort of a knee-jerk reaction to the introduction of new products or increasing in volume or whatever. But if you Google merchant account horror stories, you will come up with millions of hits and lots of people trying to sell you stuff, by the way. But you'll come up with millions of hits of business owners, specifically e-commerce companies that had a spike in volume and their provider closed their merchant account. And then all of a sudden they couldn't accept credit cards. Or they had a spike in volume and the provider held a chunk of their money. Or they didn't have a spike in volume at all, but the provider just decided, hey, we don't like this business model anymore. And I could go on about that for quite a while, but the problem is that they're controlling their risk, and what that means is a conversation too, but they're controlling their risk. And from a business owner's perspective, it feels like you're getting blindsided. But if you lose the ability to accept credit cards, you're just in a world of hurt. I mean, obviously, you can't really do e-commerce if you can't accept credit cards. So Easy Pay Direct built a gateway that allows you to put multiple merchant accounts into it and then automatically split the sales volume across them. It's called load balancing. And we're designed to be a one-stop shop. So we set up the gateway for you, and then we set up merchant accounts for you to facilitate that process. And that becomes most relevant once you sort of pass the 20, 30, 40 grand a month mark. But incredibly, incredibly relevant as you get into larger sizes, 100 grand a month, $1 million a month, 10 million a month.
That's crazy cool. I think that's probably the thing, only because I know we've had this experience, unfortunately, and anybody who's had any success online has had this experience, and it's one experience you want to avoid. The last thing you want is your merchant account being shut down or your merchant holding hundreds of thousands of your dollars going, wait a second, that's my money and I can't use it, and all of a sudden you've got an issue in your banking or anything else. So anybody who's listened to any of Russell's stories, one of those stories where he almost went bankrupt was around this exact same issue, and that is merchant account problems. So I really want to make sure we had Brad on today to really kind of talk about this. And again, you got a lot of you guys going, gosh, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 a month. Realize, guys, that actually happens really fast if you're building your business correctly. And so I want to make sure that you guys understand the importance of picking your merchant account at the beginning. It's really hard to be in a situation where all of a sudden your merchant accounts get shut down and then you're trying to find somebody. So I really wanted to make sure that Brad came on and kind of talk to you a little bit about this and what to look for. So Brad, if you don't mind, can you a lot of our users start off with Stripe or PayPal or something. If you don't mind, kind of help them understand what the difference is between merchant accounts and PayPal and Stripe, and most importantly, when they should use one and when they should use the other.
Yeah, totally. So first and foremost, I'm glad you just said that, because one of the common things that we run into is, oh, well, I've never had a problem, so I'm not going to have a problem. And I think it's really, really valuable for you and for Russell to share that it's happened to you, and that, oh my gosh, it happens to everybody.
Yeah, because no matter how clean your business is, once you start doing a lot of volume, it's going to happen. So it's not a matter of if, it's only when. And it's like any type of insurance, you can't buy that insurance afterwards. So this is the kind of thing you want to make sure you set up right at the beginning.
Yep. And to be clear, we see it happen with people that are doing 10 grand a month and people that are doing 10 million a month. And it's just, and honestly, you can say, oh, it's a much bigger deal when it happens at 10 million a month because it's so much more money. But I'll tell you that the impact to the business owner feels much greater for that 10 grand a month business because it's all the money they have, right? It's everything that they've worked for. And it will impact lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
So the major differences here, PayPal and Stripe are what are considered merchant account aggregators. And they are a fundamentally different business model than a merchant account provider. So the idea is that PayPal and Stripe have one, and this is an oversimplification, but they each have one merchant account. So let's say Stripe has one merchant account, and then they let thousands or hundreds of thousands of people use that one merchant account. And the idea is that if one of those business owners is fraudulent or goes bankrupt and then can't pay back refunds and chargebacks, they're still going to be okay because they're balancing the risk across their whole portfolio. Versus traditional merchant accounts where there's a one-to-one relationship. So we create one merchant account for one business owner. Now, why would you do one versus the other? PayPal and Stripe are really good models for people that want to turn something on immediately, right? Hey, I need to accept payments today or tomorrow. That's awesome. But what that means, inherent and built into that model, is awesome. You can accept payments immediately, but they're going to restrict certain industries that are just, quote unquote, too risky for them. And those are things like e-cigarette companies, travel companies, network marketing companies, information product companies. Tons of those things are on their prohibited list. So you'll either get declined right away, or worse, you'll get approved, and then they'll find out later that you're not in the vertical that they like. But built into that model is they turn all of the accounts on right away, and they control risk later. That's what the aggregation model is about. Speed to accept payments, awesome, and then they review and look at it and say, hey, is this something that we like, and control it later. The problem is because they don't know who you are, what you do, what kind of products you sell, how you're structured, how you source products, how you deliver products. If you deliver products, there's no way to control risk other than to close the account later or suspend the account later. So that's how they control risk. It's fast approval, assessing risk after the fact. The opposite of that are traditional merchant accounts. In traditional merchant accounts, you go through an underwriting process on the front end. And by the way, I want to say that there are 99% of the merchant account providers out there operate very much like Stripe and PayPal. They approve things really quickly, and then they worry about it later and just close it later. Why? Because they make more money that way, right? Because at least on the front end, because they're able to take fees from you on the front end. You process payments, they get a percentage of it, they take fees on the front end, and then they close it. There's this 1% of merchant account providers out there that are focused on e-commerce, and their goal is to do really good underwriting on the front end. They want to know who you are, what you do, what your background is, what the business's background is, what kind of products you're selling, how you're marketing them, what your terms and conditions are. Because if they do all of that and then they approve you, you're much, 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 much less likely to get shut down because they've already done the underwriting.
I love that. Yeah, it totally does. In fact, I'm going to interject a quick story here. We integrated with, so we've had an integration with PayPal for quite some time, but Braintree was one it was owned by PayPal. It's kind of a way they're doing their business now. We actually had a lot of people, so we rolled out this integration about 4 months ago and sent a ton of business to Braintree, where Braintree literally shut down all of our integrations at first. And we had people, crying to us saying, gosh, what's wrong? What's ClickFunnels doing? It wasn't a ClickFunnels issue. It was a Braintree PayPal issue. And that was, we were sending them too much business that they literally could not underwrite it fast enough. And I think what you were just saying is, here they're giving away all these free accounts, but didn't understand the risk that's involved there. So I think it's really important, you guys, as you understand and you listen to what Brad's saying here, that go ahead, if you're going to start with Stripe or something like that, that's fine. We'd love that. Get started, get it going. But at the same time you're doing that, you need to start looking at setting up a merchant account. And Brad's has done a great job at understanding this business. That's, again, the main reason I wanted to have him on, to really help you guys understand this. So if you don't mind, help people understand, what is the best way for them to really kind of get going in this stuff? What do they do?
I mean, honestly, one of the most important things is to trust somebody, is to have somebody you can trust. Honestly, because the merchant account world, like I said, 99% of the people out there they're just like the same structure as PayPal and Stripe. They just want to get you on the books quickly so they can make money, and they don't understand the background, most of them. The agents that are selling. So like when you Google this stuff, you end up with tons of results of people that you don't really want to work with. So getting a recommendation, that the fact that I'm on the podcast lends some credibility to me for the moment, right?
Absolutely.
But it's really important to have somebody you trust, because you can go out and learn all this stuff. We have information products that help educate our clients about the world, but you can only be an expert in so many things. And as an entrepreneur, you should focus on operations and marketing and your funnels and hiring and being an entrepreneur, not the nuances of online payments. So, internally, we've made a point of starting everything with a call, right? Starting everything with a 15-minute consultation so that we can get to know the person's business model. And we have an online application that you can go through, and it shows people, or it digs into those questions. But everybody's different, right? Some people want to do it via text, hands off, where they just give us the info that way. Some people want to have a call. But it starts with getting to know the business model.
So, Brad, when do they start contacting you for this kind of stuff? And some of these guys, listen, they don't make anything at all for the first month or two. When is the best point to start? Because the last thing you guys want to be is in a situation where you've got a whole bunch of stuff coming in and then you get shut down. So you have to avoid that. So when's the best time for them to contact a company like yourself to really get going?
The easy answer to that is ahead of time, because you're dead on. So we get calls from people that say, "Oh, we're doing a product launch next week. Can you get us up and running?" And the answer is probably yes, but you should have called us a month ago. So really, you want to get this stuff set up a month. At least a month before, or 2 months before you do something like a product launch. And if you're new in business, my suggestion is PayPal and Stripe are fine to vet the concept. But once you see that your concept works and that you're capable of doing things, as soon as you're kind of on the upswing to 10 grand a month, so you're doing a couple grand a month, a few grand a month, then you should set up the first merchant account. And then as things roll from there, we're designed to set up additional merchant accounts as volume increases, et cetera. But that's when you want to start. You need to start looking at multiple merchant accounts once you pass, 20, 30 grand a month. But you should definitely look at a real merchant account as opposed to an aggregator like Stripe or PayPal as soon as you vet concept, as soon as you know that the model works.
So is that, you kind of mentioned, 2,000 to 3,000. So if they're making at least, 2,000 a month, that's where they need to look at getting a merchant account?
Yeah, and that's also, by the way, where the fees make sense. So the other differences here are that PayPal and Stripe don't have a fixed monthly fee. Traditional merchant accounts do. But traditional merchant accounts are typically less expensive, or can be less expensive than PayPal and Stripe, depending on the industry that you're in. So 2-3 grand a month is where there's that transitional point of, traditional merchant accounts can be less expensive. So all in all, that's when it makes sense to look at transitioning.
I love that. And again, for those of you guys who are listening, I cannot stress to you the importance of doing this. Do not put this off. This is one of those things where you are going to be really mad at yourself if you get down the road, you're making 5, 6, 7, 10,000 a month, and then something happens. Or if all of a sudden you're making that kind of money and you decide, I really want to do a product launch and bring in extra money, you need to set this up in advance. And so again, once you cross through that $2,000 a month threshold, get a hold of Brad, get a hold of someone who can basically help you set this kind of stuff up, because it does take time. It's not something that's going to happen in a day. So make sure you get this thing set up right. The last thing you ever want to do is jeopardize your business. And the biggest problem for most businesses is cash flow. And there's nothing worse than having a merchant account hold your cash. So I love, Brad, what you mentioned there. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Any other thing that you want to make sure people understand?
Yeah, well, I do want to say that one of the reasons that ClickFunnels is not actually, unlike a lot of platforms go out there and integrate to like every payment provider under the sun, and there are lots of reasons not to do that. But one of the reasons that ClickFunnels integrated with EasyPayDirect specifically in our gateway is we are connected to basically every merchant account provider out there. So when you set up the EasyPayDirect gateway, you can plug in your own merchant accounts as well. So the people that you have using the platform that already are doing volume, already have a merchant account or a couple, now you can connect through the EasyPayDirect gateway and load your stuff in that way, which is very cool. And we're happy to help with that as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because understand, running all the business development for ClickFunnels, I get requests all the time for new integrations. And one of the things probably most recently has been integrations for additional payment gateways. And if you don't mind, could you kind of clarify what the difference is between a payment gateway and a merchant account? I know this is kind of getting techie, but
no, I'm so glad you said that.
Sure, people understand there's a difference here when we're talking about this kind of stuff.
Totally. So here's the easy way to think about it. If you are in a physical store, like let's say you're in a Walmart, you will take a physical shopping cart up to a physical credit card terminal, and that credit card terminal will then connect to Walmart's merchant account. So you've got physical shopping cart, credit card terminal, merchant account. Online, you have an electronic shopping cart, right? So same concept, electronic shopping cart, but instead of a terminal, you have a gateway. And that gateway then connects to the merchant account. So the gateway is the same thing. It serves the same purpose as a credit card terminal in a store, just for online commerce.
Thank you so much, because I get asked all the time as far as, well, I've got a merchant account, but I can't integrate with the ClickFunnels. And the reason is because you have to have a gateway. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, and the reason for that, by the way, is that just like you're running into with ClickFunnels, you don't want to build an integration with 1,000 different merchant account providers, right? So if you can build it with one gateway, all of the merchant account providers are already connected to the EasyPayDirect gateway. As long as you're connected to the EasyPayDirect gateway, then you're open now to 1,000 different merchant account providers.
I really appreciate you mentioning that. And again, sorry for getting real techie on this kind of stuff, but this stuff really does matter to your business. And as far as ClickFunnels goes, we're always trying to provide the very best services and integrations we can. At the same time, the last thing we want is a whole bunch of integrations that don't make any sense for anybody. So realize the idea here as far as having that gateway integration, it does allow you access. EasyPayDirect has been fantastic to work with. Brad's been a friend now for the last couple of years, beating me up at conferences and everything else, asking when we're going to get this thing done. I'm finally happy to actually announce it has been done. It's there. And again, I really encourage you guys to figure this thing out for your own business. Spend the time. This is one of those things that literally can throttle your business down to nothing if you don't have cash flow coming in. So don't wait. Again, get a hold of Brad. Brad, what's the best way for them reaching out to you?
We'll put something up at easypaydirect.com/ClickFunnels podcast. That'll be an easy way to find things relevant to this specifically, and we'll throw something up there to hook up your audience. You can find me online if you want to follow my adventure exploits. You can go to bradweimert.com. There's always some shenanigans going on there. But yeah, those are my two homes online.
I love it. And again, we did a blog post Stephen wrote with the help of EasyPayDirect's team as well. And I will make sure that that link is here in the show notes as well. I really want to make sure that you guys understand this part of your business. It's not one of those things you want to put off too long. So again, I'll have the blog post will be in the show notes. Again, that's easypaydirect.com/ClickFunnels podcast. And Brad will put some fun stuff up there, I'm sure. So just like Brad's crampon story, this is one of those things we're trying to tell you in advance here, guys. The last thing you want is to be on top of the mountain and not be able to get down. And the last thing you want in your business is to be in a situation to where you're sitting there and all of a sudden you don't have cash coming in, or things get shut down at a time where you're really trying to grow your business. So take the time, make this happen. Brad, again, any parting words?
Go have an adventure.
I love it. Brad, thanks again. I appreciate your time, bud. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Funnel Hacker Radio Podcast. If you'd like to be notified anytime we release a new episode, just subscribe over at funnelhackerradio.com. In addition to that, we'd love to send you a free gift. You can find that free gift at funnelhackerradio.com/free trial. One last thing is we love giving away cars. So if you'd like access to a free dream car, all you have to do is go to funnelhackerradio.com/dream car and you'll get all the details. Thanks again for listening.